AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have always been very close with my younger sister, Emma, 25F. Growing up, we shared a room, secrets, and almost everything in life. Recently, though, things have become tense, and I need an outsider's perspective. Emma got engaged to her boyfriend, Kevin, 27M, about a year ago. At first, I was excited. She seemed happy, and I thought I'd finally have a sister-in-law I could get along with. I offered to help with the wedding planning since she's never really been someone who handles stress well, and I thought being involved would be fun. But almost immediately, problems began. Kevin has always been controlling, and I started noticing it more as the wedding got closer. He tried to dictate every small detail of the ceremony, from the color of the bridesmaids' shoes to the exact seating arrangements. I tried to be supportive without being overbearing, but it got worse when he started pushing Emma to cut me out of some decisions entirely, claiming I was too opinionated or too traditional. About 6 months before the wedding, Emma asked me if I would host the rehearsal dinner at my house. I live in a moderately sized apartment in the city, and I said I need to think about it because I have a demanding job and limited space. Emma got upset, but said she understood. Then, a few weeks later, she told me that Kevin insisted I host not just the rehearsal dinner, but also the wedding ceremony itself, including the reception. At first, I thought she was joking, but she was serious. I explained that my apartment and even my extended family's houses would not accommodate the number of guests they were inviting, about 150 people. I also brought up the costs, which were substantial. Kevin's response, according to Emma, was that if she loved her sister, she would make it work. I tried to reason with them both, suggesting that they could book a venue or even a friend's backyard. I even offered to help them find affordable options. Emma said she wanted everything at home because it would be intimate and personal, but she refused to compromise when I pointed out practical limitations. Over the next few months, the requests escalated. Kevin started pressuring me to handle things like catering, decoration, and even some payments. Whenever I expressed concern, he would guilt-trip me, saying things like, "You've always wanted to be part of our lives. Why can't you do this for your family?" Emma eventually started echoing his sentiments. One night, I had a breakdown. I told them both that I could not host the wedding and that their expectations were unreasonable. Emma cried, saying she thought we were closer than this, and Kevin accused me of being selfish and petty. After that, I tried to maintain distance. I still attended pre-wedding events when I could, but I refused to help with anything financially or logistically. The day before the wedding, I got a text from Emma. "We're disappointed. Kevin said you ruined his dream wedding. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. The wedding happened at a rented venue without my involvement, and from what I heard, it went fine. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Emma has barely spoken to me, and Kevin blocked me on social media. I've gotten messages from some mutual friends saying that I should have supported her and that I'm overreacting. Part of me feels guilty because Emma has always been my little sister, and I hate that our relationship is damaged. But the other part of me thinks I was being asked to do something unreasonable and potentially damaging, financially, emotionally, and socially. I feel like Kevin's manipulative behavior put me in an impossible position, and Emma sided with him instead of trying to mediate or understand my perspective. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding. Character count, 6,564 if you want. I can also create 2 to 3 alternative versions with slightly different twists and dynamics, keeping them around 6 to 7K characters each, so they feel like viral AITA stories. This helps cover different emotional angles. Do you want me to do that? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a family secret. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family. Growing up, I was the quiet one, while my sister, 30F, was the golden child. She excelled at school, sports, and social life, while I struggled with anxiety and depression. Our parents never hid their favoritism, and I spent most of my childhood trying to stay out of their way, so I wouldn't get criticized. Despite this, I've managed to build a decent life for myself, though it took a lot of therapy and personal work. A few months ago, my sister got engaged to a man I'll call Jake, 32M. I met him a few times and thought he was polite, but a little distant. I never really got close to him, but I try to be supportive because I wanted my sister to be happy. Invitations for the wedding went out a few weeks ago, and I noticed something strange. The RSVP asked for a +1, even though I don't usually bring anyone to family events. I shrugged it off at first. A week after I received the invitation, my sister called me in a panic. Apparently, Jake's side of the family has very specific rules about who can attend. Some distant cousins and friends from college were being excluded because of space, and my sister said she had to make hard choices about our own family. She told me that my parents insisted I bring someone or not come at all, because apparently it would be awkward if I came alone. I was confused and upset. My parents know I've been single for a while and are very aware that I've struggled with forming relationships. I told my sister that I wasn't comfortable trying to find a date just for a wedding, and she said, "Then maybe you shouldn't come." I felt hurt, but I tried to let it slide because she sounded stressed. Then, a few days later, another issue came up. My sister casually mentioned in a group chat that the wedding would be all about family unity, and she hoped I would finally put the past behind us. That triggered something in me. When she was growing up, my sister had done some things I never forgave her for. She bullied me relentlessly in middle and high school, calling me names, spreading rumors, and even sabotaging friendships. I never told my parents because I knew they'd dismiss it as sibling rivalry, and I spent years internalizing the pain. Therapy helped me a lot, but it didn't erase the memories. So I texted my sister privately and said I couldn't attend. I explained that the past with her and the pressure from our parents made me uncomfortable, and that I couldn't force myself into a situation that would hurt me emotionally. She didn't reply for a few days, and then when she did, she exploded. She accused me of being selfish, ruining her special day, and said our parents were devastated. My mom called me repeatedly, begging me to reconsider and accusing me of being dramatic. My dad just told me I was being ridiculous and that weddings are about family coming together. Here's where things got worse. A mutual friend of ours called me to say that my sister was spreading rumors that I had been unkind to her fiancé when I met him, which was completely untrue. I don't even remember making small talk with him more than a few times. I confronted my sister about it, and she claimed she never said that, but also said that my absence would leave a mark on the family forever. I feel stuck. On one hand, I don't want to alienate my parents or my sister completely, but on the other hand, attending this wedding would make me relive years of trauma and force me to pretend that everything is fine. I suggested attending only the reception or sending a gift, but she said that wasn't acceptable because it's about celebrating together as a family. I also found out through another cousin that some of my parents' friends have been gossiping about me, calling me dramatic and difficult because I won't just go to a wedding. I feel like the whole situation has been blown completely out of proportion, but I also can't shake the guilt I feel for my parents' disappointment. My sister refuses to speak to me unless I commit to attending, and my parents have hinted that my absence is a sign of disrespect. I've tried to explain that my decision has nothing to do with them personally, but is about my mental health and past trauma. I've offered to spend time with them separately or help with wedding tasks from a distance, but that hasn't satisfied anyone. Everyone seems to be framing this as me holding a grudge or being selfish. I guess what I'm asking is, AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding because of unresolved family trauma and the pressure my parents and sister are putting on me? I want to support my sister, but I also have to protect my mental health. I'm feeling extremely torn because part of me wants to just go to avoid drama, but another part of me feels like I would regret it deeply. My therapist says I'm justified in setting boundaries, but it's hard when the people you love most are treating your boundaries as betrayal. Since making my decision, a few friends have told me that I'm in the right for prioritizing my mental health, but family dynamics are messy, and I can't tell if I'm just being overly sensitive or if my feelings are legitimate. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding in order to protect my mental health and avoid reliving past trauma? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her bridal party demands? I, 28F, have always been close with my sister, Emma, 32F, but recently, things have escalated in ways I never anticipated. Growing up, Emma and I were pretty inseparable. We shared rooms, clothes, and secrets, and I always thought that bond would continue into adulthood. I moved across the country for college, and we stayed in touch through weekly calls and visits during holidays. I thought I would always support her no matter what, but the last year has put me in an impossible position. Emma got engaged last year, and at first I was thrilled. Her fiancé, Mark, 34M, seemed like a genuinely kind person, and I was happy to finally see her in a stable relationship. When she started planning her wedding, she invited me to be a bridesmaid. I was honored and immediately said yes. But that's when the issues began. From the very start, Emma was extremely particular about everything. The dress. She chose one that was $400, which, given my current financial situation, was not something I could easily afford. I mentioned I might need to look at alternatives, but she insisted that everyone must wear it exactly as designed. She also had very specific instructions about shoes, hair, makeup, and even jewelry. I tried to follow along, but it quickly became clear that her expectations went far beyond what any bridesmaid could reasonably do without it feeling like a second full-time job. Things got worse when she started the bridal party group chat. She made multiple posts about correcting the group's energy if anyone complained about anything. It included messages like, if you can't commit 100% to this wedding, maybe you shouldn't be part of my special day, and bridesmaids are supposed to support me, not question me. At first, I tried to brush it off, thinking she was just stressed. But then came the gift expectations. She sent out a list of gifts she expected each bridesmaid to contribute. One was a spa day gift certificate for herself and Mark. Another was a pricey, personalized item for her house. I was already stretching my budget to pay for the dress, hair, and travel, and these gifts were pushing me into financial stress I couldn't comfortably manage. I expressed my concerns gently, telling her that I loved her and wanted to support her, but some of these demands were beyond my financial means. Her response was defensive. She accused me of not valuing our relationship and putting money over family. She started comparing me to the other bridesmaids, who apparently were all fine with spending thousands on her wedding. I didn't think that was fair because everyone has different financial situations. Then came the bridal shower. Emma wanted a themed bachelorette weekend that required traveling to a different state, renting a house, and paying for activities she selected. She explicitly told me that if I couldn't attend all the events, I shouldn't even bother coming. I tried to compromise by attending only the main day, but skipping the more expensive activities. But she said that wasn't acceptable and that the weekend was all or nothing. Things finally reached a breaking point a few weeks ago when she sent a detailed schedule for the wedding day itself. She expected bridesmaids to wake up at 5 a.m., be available all day for photos, hair, makeup, and coordinating with vendors, and basically act as unpaid coordinators. I realized that what she was asking was more work than I could realistically manage, especially since I have a demanding job and my own financial constraints. I tried talking to her about this calmly, explaining that I wanted to be there for her, but couldn't commit to the exhaustive list she had laid out. Her response was harsh. She accused me of throwing a tantrum and said that if I couldn't follow her plan, I was ruining the wedding experience for her. I felt blindsided because I never imagined my sister would be this controlling and unwilling to understand my perspective. I started to see the situation clearly. If I went along with her demands, I would be financially stressed, emotionally drained, and resentful on her wedding day. After a lot of thought, I made the very difficult decision to step down as a bridesmaid and not attend the wedding at all. I sent her a heartfelt message explaining that I loved her, that I wanted to celebrate her, but that the way things were structured made it impossible for me to be part of the day without sacrificing my well-being. I offered to have a private celebration with her either before or after the wedding, but she hasn't responded positively. She told my parents and the rest of the family that I chose not to be part of her special day because I didn't care enough, which is not true at all. Since then, Our family has been divided. Some relatives think I should just suck it up and attend because it's my sister's wedding, while others understand that what she asked for was unreasonable. My parents are frustrated and feel caught in the middle. I feel guilty because I know Emma is hurt, but I also feel like I need to protect my own mental health and finances. I've had people tell me I'm selfish, that family comes first, or that I'm overreacting, but I also see this as a situation where boundaries are necessary. I love my sister, but I can't participate in a day that requires me to overextend myself to the point of resentment. I don't want this to permanently damage our relationship, but I also don't know how to reconcile attending an event that makes me so uncomfortable. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her extreme demands on her bridal party. Character count, 6,303 if you want. I can create 2 more variations with slightly different conflicts and family dynamics, all in the same popular AITA style. So you have a set of stories for reference. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to lend my childhood home to my sister after she insisted on throwing a family reunion without consulting me? So, some context. I, 34M, inherited my childhood home from my parents about 5 years ago after they both passed away in a car accident. The house is in a small town where I grew up, and I've been living there ever since. I renovated it gradually, turning it into a comfortable home for myself. It's been a kind of emotional anchor for me, and I'm very attached to it. My sister, Emily, 31F, lives about 2 hours away in the city and is very outgoing, social, and, well, I guess intense is a polite way to put it. A few weeks ago, Emily texted me out of the blue saying that she was organizing a big family reunion and wanted to use the house as the venue. She said she had invited all cousins, aunts, uncles, and even some distant relatives I barely knew. Her tone was very casual, like it was a done deal. She assumed I would say yes, and even started planning menus, decoration ideas, and sleeping arrangements. At first, I didn't respond immediately because the idea of dozens of people in my home, some of whom I haven't seen in years, made me anxious. But when I finally replied, I said I was uncomfortable with that many people in the house and that she needed to check with me before making plans. I also mentioned that the house wasn't really equipped to host that many guests overnight and that it could cause damage. Her response blew my mind. She accused me of being selfish, stingy with family, and overly controlling. She said that it was ridiculous for me to cling to the house and that it should be a place for the whole family to make memories. She even brought up money, suggesting I could charge a small rental fee to cover damages, implying that I was being unreasonable by refusing. I tried to reason with her calmly. I explained that the house is very sentimental to me and that I wasn't ready to have dozens of people in it. I told her she could have a smaller gathering, maybe just a weekend with a few family members, but she refused and said that wasn't big enough for her vision. I even offered to help her find a local hall or a vacation rental in the town that could accommodate her guest list, but she brushed it off, saying that it wouldn't feel right if it wasn't at the house. Things escalated when she started messaging our other family members, basically framing me as the villain who doesn't care about family traditions. I started getting calls and messages from aunts and uncles asking why I wouldn't let her use the house. Some of them were sympathetic, but others seemed annoyed and even pressured me to change my mind. I tried to explain the situation, but it felt like I was getting judged no matter what. The tipping point came when Emily showed up at my house unannounced with her friends to survey the property for the reunion. She brought at least 5 people with her, all chatting loudly and walking around my home. I was furious. I told her she couldn't be there, and she started arguing that I was kicking family out and overreacting. I had to call the police because she refused to leave. She eventually left, but now our family gatherings are tense, and some relatives are siding with her. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for setting boundaries in my own home. I understand wanting to have family reunions, but it feels unreasonable for her to assume she can just use my private property for her event, especially when I clearly said no. I also feel like the emotional manipulation, bringing others into it, showing up with friends, was totally inappropriate. I want to maintain a relationship with my sister, but I also feel like I can't compromise on my home, which has immense sentimental value. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my childhood home for her massive family reunion, even though it's caused tension with the rest of the family. Some extra context that might be relevant. I do visit family and host smaller gatherings occasionally. It's not like I never see anyone. The house isn't just sentimental, it's also fairly fragile. Some parts of the renovation are delicate, and having a large group would likely result in damage that I cannot afford to repair right now. Emily has a history of being very forceful about her plans. In the past, she's organized trips or events without asking anyone, and conflicts usually arise. I offered alternatives multiple times, including helping her find venues, and she consistently refused. Our parents left the house to me in their will explicitly, and while they always wanted family to feel welcome, they never indicated that I had to allow large events there against my wishes. The emotional toll is real. I'm stressed, sad, and feel like I'm being unfairly labeled as selfish by family who don't really understand the situation. At the same time, I don't want to completely cut ties with Emily, but I also need to protect my home and my own mental health. I'm also second-guessing myself a little because of how many family members have taken her side. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I should just compromise. But the thought of dozens of people in my home, including some distant relatives I barely know, makes me extremely anxious. I've considered letting a smaller gathering happen on a weekend when I could supervise, but even that feels like giving in too much. I've also thought about setting up a system where I can rent the house officially, but that feels transactional and uncomfortable for a family setting. I just want some perspective. I feel like my boundaries are reasonable, but maybe I'm missing something. The tension is real. Since this started, Emily has barely spoken to me except for angry texts, and some family members have started subtly avoiding inviting me to their events, saying things like, maybe you need to lighten up. I really don't want to escalate things further, but I also can't compromise on my home. So Reddit, AITA, character count, 6,438 if you want. I can also write a part 2 version where it goes even deeper into family drama and passive-aggressive messages, which tend to make these posts even more popular on Reddit. That version could hit 7,000 plus characters. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she asked me to pay for half of it? I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. We grew up close, but as we got older, our personalities and priorities diverged sharply. I am fairly frugal and cautious with money, while Emily has always been more spontaneous and, frankly, a bit reckless with finances. That's led to tension in the past, but I always thought we could manage it for the sake of family. Apparently, I was wrong. The story started a few months ago when Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark. They are both in their late 20s and both work, but they've also racked up some debt from student loans and credit cards. Initially, I was excited for her, even offering help with ideas for the wedding. Emily then told me she wanted to host the wedding at my house. My house is a 3-story townhouse with a nice backyard, and I do have a fair amount of space. I didn't mind the idea in principle because I enjoy hosting and I like the idea of a more intimate family wedding. The problem started when she mentioned the cost. She said that since she and Mark couldn't afford to pay for everything themselves, she expected me to cover half of the wedding costs. I laughed at first because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She said that I should pay for catering, decorations, seating, photography, and any rentals they couldn't handle themselves. She framed it as the family contribution and insisted it was standard practice in their social circles. I was shocked. My house is not a venue. It's my home. I am happy to open it up and help in ways that don't involve spending tens of thousands of dollars, but I'm not in a position to write a check for half the wedding. My own financial situation is tight. I am paying off my mortgage, car loans, and saving for my future. I told her as much, explaining that I could help with the logistics and some minor expenses, but paying half was impossible for me. That's when the argument started. Emily accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She said I was undermining her dream wedding and that if I loved her, I would find a way to help. She even brought up our parents, who apparently offered to contribute a small amount, but made it clear that they wouldn't cover everything. She seemed to think I was morally obligated to step in. I tried to reason with her. I offered to help plan, decorate, and even cook some dishes for the reception. I suggested a smaller, more manageable wedding or even a potluck-style backyard wedding where everyone chips in a little. I also suggested she consider venues that might be cheaper or at least set a realistic budget. None of this worked. She accused me of ruining everything and said she couldn't believe I would put money over family. Things escalated when I told her I would not host the wedding at my house under those financial terms. She cried, called me greedy, and ended up taking the fight to social media, posting vague statuses about family letting me down when I needed them most. Several of our mutual friends reached out to ask what was going on, and Emily painted me as the villain who refused to support her wedding. Our parents got involved, trying to mediate. They agreed that she shouldn't expect me to pay half, but Emily insisted that I at least cover a large chunk. They told me to try harder to compromise, but they also acknowledged my financial limits. Eventually, I told Emily that I would not host the wedding if she expected me to pay half, and I suggested she book a venue she could afford on her own or reduce the guest list. Emily blew up, saying she would never forgive me and that I basically disowned her on her wedding day. Since then, our relationship has been extremely strained. Our parents have been acting as buffers, but Emily refuses to speak to me unless it's about wedding drama. I feel guilty because I want her to have a happy wedding, but I also know that financially I cannot and should not take on that burden. I have offered help in other ways, planning, organization, moral support, but she refuses anything that doesn't involve me footing the bill. I've been replaying the conversations over and over in my head, wondering if I should have found some compromise, like lending a smaller amount or hosting a portion of the events. But even lending money seems risky because she has a history of not paying back loans, and I really can't afford to take that risk. My friends mostly think I'm not in the wrong, but some have suggested that family obligations sometimes means sacrificing financially for siblings, and now I'm doubting myself. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she asked me to pay for half of it? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a decade-long family feud? I, 32F, come from a fairly tight-knit family, or at least that's what it looked like from the outside. My younger sister, Jenna, 28F, has always been the golden child. Growing up, she was the one who got the praise for her achievements, the cute outfits, the piano recitals, and even my parents' vacation time seemed to revolve around her schedules. I was the quiet middle child, and honestly, I didn't mind most of the time. I had my own friends, interests, and hobbies. But things got complicated after high school when Jenna and I went to different colleges and started living very separate lives. The issue started in earnest about 10 years ago. Our family had this tradition of celebrating birthdays in a big way, usually with a party at our parents' house. For my 21st birthday, I had spent months planning a small gathering with my closest friends, asking for a quiet dinner rather than a big celebration. My parents agreed, but Jenna decided she wanted to throw a joint celebration for her upcoming 18th birthday and my 21st. I hesitated, but they were insistent. When the day came, she hijacked the party completely. She chose the music, the decorations, even dictated the guest list. My friends were largely sidelined, and she spent the entire evening being the center of attention. I tried to stay polite, but I was deeply hurt. I expressed my feelings quietly to my parents, and instead of validating me, they brushed it off. She's just excited, they said. You'll understand when you have siblings. That night, I realized that no matter how small my voice might be, it would always be overshadowed by hers. That's when I started withdrawing, limiting contact with her and even our parents. I wasn't being dramatic. I was protecting my mental health. Over the years, the pattern continued. Jenna would make decisions about family events and completely ignore my input. She's the type to send a text like, "We're all going to the lake this weekend. See you there," without asking anyone if it works for them. If I can't make it, I get guilted or criticized subtly. For birthdays, holidays, and even minor gatherings, my attendance is expected rather than optional. For a long time, I tolerated it because I thought maybe family came with these expectations. Then came the wedding announcement. Jenna got engaged last year and immediately started sending out save-the-dates. She invited everyone in the family, except me. I didn't receive a personal invitation, just a vague email through my parents. When I asked my mom about it, she told me Jenna assumed I wouldn't come because of our past. I was hurt and furious. I explained to my mom that my absence wasn't a foregone conclusion. I would have gone if I were asked like everyone else. My mom shrugged it off and said I should be grateful she even included me indirectly. I confronted Jenna directly. I said, I want to be part of your wedding. I love you, and I want to celebrate this moment with you. Her response was, I thought you hated me. You've been avoiding the family for years. Honestly, I didn't want you there to ruin my day. At this point, I realized this wedding wasn't going to be a celebration for the family. It was going to be her show, her way, her script. I decided to write a long letter instead of attending. In it, I explained my feelings, how I felt overlooked for years, how my voice and my presence seemed unimportant, and how this pattern hurt me deeply. I also stated that I love her, and I hope we can repair our relationship. But I could not, in good conscience, be part of an event where I would be treated as an afterthought or a potential ruiner. When my parents found out I wasn't attending, they lost it. They called me selfish, cruel, and even immature for holding a grudge over the past. My extended family mostly sided with them. Jenna posted a long Instagram story about family betrayal, without naming me, but clearly referencing my absence. A few relatives tried to mediate, saying I should just put it aside for one day. But to me, it wasn't about one day. It was about being respected and acknowledged for the first time in my life. I've since been labeled as the villain in the family group chat. My dad said he can't believe I'm letting my bitterness dictate my actions. My mom told me I need to learn to forgive. I tried explaining that forgiveness is not the same as participation and that healing doesn't happen through forced proximity. Friends have been divided too. Some say I'm justified. Decades of being overlooked and emotionally dismissed justify setting boundaries. Others think I'm being stubborn and selfish, that family moments like weddings are too important to skip. Honestly, I feel exhausted by the judgment. I'm not celebrating someone else's happiness at the cost of my own emotional well-being. But I also feel the pang of sadness knowing that my absence might permanently damage what little connection I have left with my sister. I don't want a dramatic family feud, and I genuinely hope one day we can reconcile. But right now, I can't participate in a wedding where my presence is treated as optional or unwelcome. I know it makes me seem cold, and maybe I am in this context, but I've spent most of my adult life trying to navigate a family dynamic that consistently sidelines me, and I've realized that setting this boundary is the only way I can protect myself. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of feeling invisible and disrespected by her and my parents. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her +1 rule. I, 29F, have always had a close but complicated relationship with my sister, Emma, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child, and I was the quiet, slightly overlooked one. I never held it against her. It was just her dynamic. As adults, we got along well enough, but sometimes our different lifestyles caused friction. Emma recently got engaged to a guy named Matt, 34M. I met him a couple of times before the engagement, and while I didn't dislike him, I also didn't feel an immediate connection. When she announced the wedding, I was genuinely happy for her and started planning what I would wear and how I would travel to attend. Here's where things started to go downhill. When the invitations went out, Emma sent me a card addressed to me only, no +1. At first, I thought it might be a mistake, so I asked her if I could bring my boyfriend, Alex, 30M, and she said no, explaining that the venue was very limited and intimate and that she was keeping the guest list minimal. I was disappointed, but didn't want to make a scene. I have known Alex for 4 years, and while we aren't always at family events together, I thought he might at least meet my family at big occasions. I mentioned to Emma that it would feel weird attending alone when most of our mutual friends and other siblings would be with their partners, and she said she understood, but firmly said the guest list was set. Fine, I told myself. I can manage a night solo. A week later, I got a text from Emma that changed everything. She said, just so you know, Matt's childhood friend is coming as his +1. I just wanted to make sure you're okay with that. I was confused because if the venue was really very limited, why was he allowed to bring a date? I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe they were childhood friends who hadn't seen each other in years, and that it was a special case. A few days after that, I found out through a mutual cousin that several other guests were also bringing plus ones. I confronted Emma about it. Her response was, "I'm sorry you feel left out, but some of these were negotiated on my end. Matt has a few friends who wouldn't have attended without a date, and I had to make compromises." I was hurt and felt singled out. It seemed like the very limited and intimate excuse only applied to me, and suddenly everyone else was allowed. I texted her back, trying to keep my cool, saying, "I feel like I'm being treated differently. I don't want to make a scene at your wedding, but I also can't ignore that I'm the only adult being forced to attend alone when others aren't." She responded with a very long message, basically implying that I was overreacting and that this was her wedding and she could do whatever she wanted. She mentioned that Matt's friends weren't part of her family, but as her sister, I should understand why exceptions were made. I tried to let it go, but every update I got about the wedding made me feel worse. The seating chart, the photos she posted of other guests with partners, the engagement party, it all emphasized the difference between how she treated me and everyone else. Eventually, I told Alex everything, and he was frustrated too. He said I should stand up for myself, and that if Emma couldn't treat me fairly, maybe skipping the wedding was the right choice. I struggled with it because I didn't want to cause family drama, but after talking to a few other relatives, it seemed like most of them quietly agreed that the +1 rule was unfair, but nobody wanted to confront her directly. After several sleepless nights, I made the decision to not attend the wedding. I sent Emma a long message explaining that I loved her. I wanted to celebrate with her, but being treated differently and feeling like an afterthought made it impossible for me to attend. I offered to meet her for a private dinner or drinks after the wedding so I could still celebrate with her one-on-one. Her response was intense. She called me selfish, dramatic, and accused me of holding a grudge over something so minor. She said that her wedding was about her and Matt, and if I couldn't be happy for her without making it about my own hurt feelings, then maybe I shouldn't attend. I have since spoken to a few other siblings and cousins. Some think I'm right, others say I'm overreacting. My parents are disappointed in both of us, but mostly seem to think I should have sucked it up. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I want to support my sister and celebrate a milestone in her life. On the other hand, I feel genuinely disrespected and singled out. I don't want to burn bridges, but I also don't want to sit through an event where I feel invisible and unappreciated. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the way she handled +1s. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house for a week, even though he desperately needed it. I, 28F, have always been the kind of person who values her space and routine. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment that I love because it's peaceful and exactly how I like it. My sister, Emily, 30F, is very different. She's outgoing, dramatic, and tends to assume people will drop everything to accommodate her. Over the years, we've had our fair share of arguments, mostly around boundaries, but I've always tried to stay patient. That said, this situation is pushing me to my limits. Emily recently got engaged to a guy named Ryan, 32M. I hadn't spent much time around him before the engagement, but from the little I did, I found him a little intense. He seems charming when he wants something, but I've caught him being condescending to Emily on several occasions, which I didn't like. I didn't voice my concerns to Emily because I thought it might just be first impressions, and I wanted to be supportive. Anyway, last week Emily called me out of the blue, sounding panicked. She explained that Ryan's apartment had a major plumbing disaster, flooded kitchen, broken bathroom, the works, and he supposedly couldn't stay there for at least a week. She then said that he was desperately in need of a place to stay and asked if he could crash in my apartment. I was taken aback. I don't have any issue helping people in real emergencies, but my first thought was, why am I the one he's asking? I've barely spent time with him, and my apartment isn't exactly set up for long-term guests. I explained that I live alone and that I wasn't comfortable having him stay for a week. I offered to help him find a nearby hotel or even Airbnb, but I couldn't host him. Emily immediately got defensive. She said I was being selfish and that family should support each other, especially in emergencies. She even started crying over the phone, saying that Ryan doesn't have anyone else and that I was her only hope. I felt pressured, but I didn't budge. Then she said something that made my blood boil. "You're making this about you. It's just 1 week. He's my fiancé. If you don't help, you're hurting me and him." I tried explaining that I wasn't refusing because I didn't care, but because having a stranger in my apartment for a week would disrupt my mental health and personal life. I also pointed out that if the plumbing issue was so severe, he could stay in a hotel, or I could help him look for temporary roommates. But she didn't seem to care. The argument escalated. She accused me of favoritism because I have another sister, Sarah, who lives in the same city and apparently offered to help Ryan. I told her that I wasn't comparing myself to anyone else, and that each person has their own comfort levels and boundaries. Emily said that I was being vindictive and trying to sabotage her happiness. At this point, I hung up because I couldn't handle the emotional yelling anymore. A few days later, I found out through mutual friends that Ryan had stayed at a hotel, which I had suggested, and apparently things went fine. Emily hasn't spoken to me since. She's posted vague Instagram stories about people who only think about themselves and tagged me in a passive-aggressive meme about family obligations. My parents have also been asking me why I can't just help my sister and have expressed disappointment that I wasn't more accommodating. I understand that families sometimes need support, and I have helped Emily in the past. I've lent her money when she was in tough spots, helped with moving, and even spent long weekends watching her kids while she worked. But I also have to protect my own mental health and personal boundaries. Hosting a stranger for a week, especially someone I barely know, feels like a huge violation of my space. Here's where I feel conflicted. Some friends tell me I was completely in the right and that Emily was overstepping. Others say that since Ryan is her fiancé, it would have been the nice thing to do, and I should have found a way to make it work. I get that supporting family is important, but I also feel like my sister is guilt-tripping me for having my own limits. Now, Emily is not speaking to me, my parents are disappointed, and I'm starting to feel like I might be the bad one, even though I followed through with alternative solutions that were reasonable. I'm just really tired of being blamed for protecting my personal space, and I don't know if I'm overreacting. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my apartment for a week, even though he desperately needed it. Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her rule that my partner couldn't be invited. So, this is going to be long, but I feel like I need to give all the context. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, who has been planning her wedding for over a year now. When she first got engaged, I was thrilled, genuinely excited for her. I have always been close with her despite some normal sibling friction, and I wanted to be there for her big day. My problem started when she began sending out planning updates to family and friends, which included some very strict rules that seemed, honestly, unreasonable. I have been with my partner, Mark 34M, for about 6 years. We live together, we have a home, and we are serious about our relationship. Mark gets along with most of my family, though he hasn't spent as much time with Emily since she moved across the country. That's the key point. He's never really interacted much with her. But I assumed he'd be welcomed at her wedding as my guest, since that's normal in most families. A couple months into the wedding planning, Emily called me. She seemed upset about something, but I couldn't tell what exactly. Eventually, she told me that she was setting a no +1 rule for the ceremony and reception. She said, and I quote, "I want my wedding to be intimate, and I don't want people bringing random friends or partners who aren't close to me. I don't know Mark that well, so he can't come." I was stunned. I tried to reason with her. I told her that Mark and I have been together for 6 years, that he is my partner, and that it felt really unfair to exclude him from a family celebration. I suggested that if she was worried about him not knowing her or anyone else, we could arrange some small meetups with mutual family members so he could feel included and not be awkward. Emily refused. She said that the wedding was about her and her fiancé, not about making everyone else comfortable, and that she didn't want to risk any drama or awkwardness with someone she barely knew. I reminded her that we're family, and that Mark has been part of my life for over half a decade. I even mentioned that it might feel disrespectful to my relationship, but she remained firm. At first, I thought maybe I could still attend solo, but then she dropped another bomb. She was enforcing a rule that no guest could attend without their designated invite. That meant she literally wrote a list of who could come and who couldn't, and if your plus one wasn't on the list, you weren't allowed. I tried asking if she would at least make an exception for my partner since we live together and share our lives, but she insisted she had to stick to the list for budget and seating reasons. I felt like I was being punished for having a partner, so I eventually told her that I couldn't attend the wedding if Mark wasn't welcome. I tried to explain calmly that it's hurtful to be asked to celebrate such a major milestone alone, while the person I share my life with is left out. I said that if she couldn't accommodate him, I would step back from the wedding entirely. She was furious. She called me selfish, dramatic, and accused me of trying to make her wedding about me instead of her. She even said that she'd always known I'd be difficult about this, which really stung because I thought we were close. My parents are split on it. They understand her desire for a small wedding, but they also feel like excluding my partner is extreme. My friends have been mostly supportive, saying I shouldn't compromise on my relationship just to attend a party. Since then, there's been no direct conversation. Emily posted updates about dress fittings, seating charts, and cake tastings on social media, and I've avoided commenting. A few mutual family members have asked if I'm attending, and I've had to lie, saying I have prior commitments. The truth is I don't feel comfortable going alone, and I don't want to be part of a celebration where my partner is explicitly not allowed. My parents have urged me to just suck it up for one day and go, saying it's only a few hours and that she might regret excluding Mark later. I understand that, but it feels like sacrificing my dignity and my relationship for a day of photos and ceremony is not worth it. I don't want to be resentful or upset at an event that's supposed to be joyful. A couple of people have suggested that I could send a gift and attend virtually, but honestly, it doesn't feel like the same thing. I feel like I've tried to compromise and reason with Emily, and she has refused every attempt. I also feel like she's being unfairly controlling and perhaps even punishing me for being in a long-term relationship. I know that people have different ideas about weddings and intimacy, but the more I think about it, the more I feel that her rules are crossing a line. A wedding is supposed to celebrate love and family, and for me, my partner is a huge part of that. I'm also worried that if I go alone, it will cause tension or awkwardness that will make the day unpleasant for everyone, including her. So here I am, feeling hurt, excluded, and frustrated, and I'm questioning whether I'm being unreasonable for refusing to attend. I keep going back and forth in my head, wondering if I'm overreacting or if I'm standing up for myself and my relationship. I also worry that this might permanently damage my relationship with Emily, but I feel like I can't compromise on this particular issue. I'm posting here because I genuinely want to know if I'm the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she won't allow my long-term partner to be there. Has anyone else dealt with a wedding no plus one situation like this? I feel like I've tried to handle it maturely, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm being unfairly punished for my life choices. AITA? AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband live in my house even though he has nowhere else to go. This all started about 6 months ago. My sister, Karen, and I have had a complicated relationship for most of our lives. We were close as kids, but as adults, she has become very controlling and a bit manipulative, especially when it comes to family matters. I'm 31, married, and own a 3-bedroom house, which I share with my husband, Tom, and our 2 cats. Karen is 28, married to Ethan, and they live about an hour away. A few months back, Ethan lost his job unexpectedly. He didn't want to tell Karen immediately, but eventually, it came out that he had been let go due to poor performance. Karen, instead of encouraging him to get back on his feet, started panicking about their finances. They have no savings, and she works a low-paying retail job. It's been stressful for both of them, but Karen kept insisting that Ethan should move in with us temporarily because we have the space, and it's only for a few weeks. At first, I was hesitant. Our house isn't huge, and having another adult in our living space long-term is stressful. I explained that while we could help in other ways, like offering meals or helping him look for work, I wasn't comfortable with him living with us. Karen argued, saying that we are family and families are supposed to help each other out. I told her I didn't see that as a solution. Then things escalated. Karen called me almost daily, pressuring me, telling me how difficult things were, and sometimes making subtle jabs about how I have so much and refuse to share it with family. She even brought Ethan over one weekend to see if he could just try staying for a night to see how it works. I told him no. He stayed on the couch for one night, and the next morning, I told him he needed to leave. After that, Karen started showing up at my door unexpectedly, sometimes with Ethan, sometimes just him, expecting me to let him in or feed him. I began locking the doors, which led to a huge argument with her. She accused me of being heartless and said that Ethan has no one else to turn to. She even tried to guilt-trip me by pointing out that I'm financially stable and could make it work if I wanted to. One night, things came to a head. Ethan appeared at my front door around 10 p.m., looking desperate and asking if he could stay until he figured something out. I refused, and he begged, saying he had no money, nowhere to go, and Karen wasn't helping. I told him firmly he couldn't stay, and I called Karen to come pick him up. She yelled at me for 10 minutes, calling me selfish and accusing me of betraying the family. The next day, I found out through a mutual friend that Karen has been telling people that I kicked her husband out on the street, even though he went to stay with another friend who lives several towns over. This made me angry because I've been trying to help in other ways, offering rides to interviews, helping him rewrite his resume, sending grocery gift cards, but Karen made it sound like I was completely unsympathetic. Things have only gotten worse since then. Karen has started sending me long texts about how Ethan is depressed and needs support, and keeps implying that if I cared about her family, I would let him stay. She even mentioned that if I don't help, our relationship might end. I've tried to explain that my home is not an emergency shelter and that enabling him to stay indefinitely won't help him become independent. Ethan has a few friends in town who are willing to let him crash for a week or two while he finds a job. Karen refuses to acknowledge that option. My husband, Tom, is fully supportive of my decision. He said that letting Ethan move in would disrupt our lives, create tension, and not necessarily solve the underlying problems. My parents are split. My mom thinks I'm doing the right thing, and my dad thinks I should at least let Ethan stay for a short period. I honestly feel torn because I do want to help, but I also feel manipulated. Karen keeps framing the situation as me turning my back on family, and I worry that the conflict is going to cause a permanent rift. I've offered financial help, career advice, and even temporary meals, but she keeps pushing for living arrangements. Every time I say no, it turns into guilt-tripping and long arguments about morality, family duty, and being unlike other siblings. Some friends have told me I'm justified because my house is my home and I have boundaries. Others have suggested I should just let him stay for a week to keep the peace. But I feel like giving in would set a precedent that Karen can pressure me into whatever she wants. I want to help in ways that don't disrupt our lives or enable Ethan to avoid responsibility. But Karen seems unable to see the difference. So Reddit, AITA here? Am I being unreasonable for refusing to let my sister's husband live in my house, even temporarily, given that he has nowhere else to go? Or am I justified in setting boundaries for the sake of my own household and mental health? Character count, 6,347 if you want. I can also write an even longer version closer to 7,000 characters with more detailed dialogue, escalation, and emotional tension. It would feel even more like the highly popular AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to give up my own wedding plans? This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I, 29F, have been with my fiancé, Ryan, 31M, for about 4 years. We met in college, and our relationship has been steady and supportive the whole time. We recently got engaged, and the plan was to have a wedding next spring. Our families are moderately close, and overall, everyone has gotten along reasonably well, so we didn't expect too much drama. That was until my sister, Emily, 32F, announced her engagement. Emily has always been a bit controlling, especially when it comes to family events. Growing up, it felt like she was always the one setting the rules, and people were just expected to go along with them. I've tried to be diplomatic about it over the years, but it's been a bit of a sore spot. When she got engaged, she immediately started talking about her dream wedding, which included a large ceremony at a fancy venue and a very specific guest list. I didn't think much of it at first, but then things started getting weird. About a week after announcing her engagement, she called me and said she wanted to talk privately. I agreed, thinking she just wanted to chat about wedding plans. That's when she dropped the bomb. She wanted me to postpone my wedding by a year because the date I had tentatively picked clashed with her big day. She said that having two big weddings so close together would be confusing for family and would somehow overshadow her special day. I was honestly stunned. I explained that Ryan and I had already been planning for months, that we had signed a tentative contract with our venue, and that our families had already blocked off the date. I also pointed out that asking me to delay my wedding so her day would be more convenient seemed unfair. Emily got very upset and started listing all the reasons why she thought it was reasonable. Our mutual friends might have to choose which wedding to attend, our parents would be split in attention, and so on. She kept repeating that this was her moment and that it mattered more than anyone else's timeline. I tried to compromise by suggesting we could coordinate guest lists so that people wouldn't have to choose or even consider moving our rehearsal dinner to a different weekend. But Emily wasn't having it. She said nothing would make the situation right unless I simply delayed the wedding. I felt cornered and a little hurt, especially since this felt more like a power move than anything about actual logistics. I told her I couldn't change our date and that I needed her to respect our plans. She responded by saying that if I didn't change the date, she would consider me unsupportive and that maybe I shouldn't attend her wedding at all. At this point, I realized this wasn't going to be about compromise. After thinking it over for a few days, Ryan and I decided that we couldn't let our wedding plans be dictated by someone else's whims, no matter how much family drama it might cause. I called Emily back and told her, calmly, that I would not be changing our date and that while I still wanted to be part of her day, I could not let her manipulate me into giving up my own wedding. She said she understood, but then, in the same breath, sent a long message saying she would be hurt if I came to her wedding and that she was reconsidering inviting me. I tried reaching out to our parents to mediate, but they were caught in the middle. They said they didn't want to force me to change my plans, but also didn't want to upset Emily. It quickly became clear that there was no middle ground. After several tense conversations, I made the difficult decision not to attend Emily's wedding. I sent her a message explaining that I loved her, that I wanted to celebrate her marriage, but that I couldn't put my own wedding on hold or risk further conflict by showing up. The fallout has been intense. Emily has called our parents repeatedly, saying I'm being selfish and that I ruined her dream. She has also started posting passive-aggressive things on social media, like pictures of her engagement ring with captions about family priorities. Some family members are quietly siding with her, saying I should have made the sacrifices for the sake of family harmony. Others are supporting me, acknowledging that asking someone to give up their own wedding is extreme. Ryan has been incredibly supportive throughout this. He agrees that we can't let one person dictate our life events, no matter how close she is. My parents are stressed, but try not to take sides publicly. I've had a few friends tell me I might be overreacting, saying weddings are all about compromise, but it genuinely feels like this isn't a simple compromise. It's being asked to erase months of planning and commitment because Emily wants to feel special. I feel sad and guilty because I do love my sister and wanted to be there for her, but I also feel like she's crossed a line. At this point, it seems like attending would just validate her attempt to control my choices. The last message I got from her said, "If you loved me, you would show up," and that's when I realized there's no reasoning here without giving in. So AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she asked me to postpone my own? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? So this is going to be a long one, and I want to preface it by saying I love my sister dearly. We grew up super close, literally best friends since childhood. I've been there for her through every major milestone, supported her during heartbreaks, and even helped her plan her first apartment when she moved out. So when she got engaged last year, I was genuinely happy for her at first. Her fiancé, let's call him Jason, is the issue. I'm going to try to lay out the timeline so this makes sense. From the beginning, I didn't like him. I know that might make me sound biased, but hear me out. He came off as charming and polite when he first met me, but over time, his behavior revealed a much darker side. He's controlling in ways that most people wouldn't even notice at first glance. For example, when we were helping my sister with her wedding guest list, he insisted that we remove certain people because they wouldn't fit the vibe. These were close family friends and distant relatives who had known her for years. My sister brushed it off, saying it was part of wedding planning, but I could see where it was heading. It got worse. Jason has a habit of subtly undermining my sister. He'll make jokes about her career or the way she dresses in front of other people, and she laughs it off nervously, saying she's used to it. At first, I thought I might be overreacting or misreading it, but the comments were frequent and increasingly personal. I tried talking to my sister gently, but she always defended him, saying, "He doesn't mean it that way," or "You're being too sensitive." I felt like I was treading on eggshells every time I was around him. The turning point came last month. My sister and I went shopping for her wedding dress. Jason came along, which I wasn't thrilled about, but wanted to be polite. During the appointment, he interrupted constantly, criticizing the dresses I suggested and trying to steer my sister toward styles I knew she hated. At one point, he loudly said, "Are you sure you want something so plain? You should try to be more stylish for the photos." My sister smiled awkwardly, and I could see her confidence take a hit. I snapped. I told him that his comments were inappropriate and that he was crossing a line. He looked shocked and said, "I'm just trying to help." I told him help doesn't involve insulting someone. My sister didn't say anything at that moment, but I could tell she was uncomfortable. After that incident, I started to notice more patterns. He makes decisions for her, without consulting her, pressures her into activities she isn't comfortable with, and often dismisses her opinions. I've tried to talk to my sister, but she always tells me I'm exaggerating and that I don't understand their relationship. I can't ignore what I see, though. I know it sounds harsh, but it genuinely looks like emotional manipulation to me. 2 weeks ago, she sent out the final wedding invites, and I noticed that she hadn't included my best friend, who has been part of our family's life for over a decade. When I asked her about it, she said Jason didn't think it was appropriate for the guest list. That was the last straw. I realized that if I went to the wedding, I would be implicitly condoning Jason's behavior. I called my sister to explain why I wouldn't be attending. I tried to be calm and respectful, saying that I couldn't support a relationship that I felt was harmful to her, and that I needed to step back for my own peace of mind. She was furious. She accused me of choosing Jason over her and trying to control her decisions like he does. She said I was making the wedding about myself, and that she couldn't believe I would refuse to celebrate her special day. Since then, the family has been divided. Some relatives agree with me, citing Jason's controlling behavior, while others think I'm being dramatic and that it's just wedding stress. My sister hasn't spoken to me since the phone call, and the thought of her marrying someone I see as manipulative is breaking my heart. I feel like I'm doing the right thing by standing my ground, but I also feel like I'm losing my sister. I'm torn because I genuinely want my sister to be happy, but I also can't ignore what I see. I worry that if I attend, I'll be complicit in her mistreatment, and I'll have to interact with someone I fundamentally distrust. I've offered to support her in other ways, like helping with planning or celebrating before or after the wedding, but she refuses to hear it. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I feel like I'm protecting both her and myself, but now I'm being painted as the villain. Character count, 6,422. Would you like me to craft another one that leans more into drama and public fallout? AITA for refusing to let my brother-in-law bring his dog to my wedding despite everyone else saying I'm being unreasonable. I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, Mark, 30M, for 6 years, and we finally set a wedding date for this upcoming spring. Our relationship with our families has generally been good, but as is often the case, there are some tensions. The biggest ongoing issue has been my sister-in-law, Jenna, 26F, and her obsession with her dog. Max is a golden retriever, and from the beginning, I've had nothing against him in principle. I like dogs, but I've never been a dog person in the sense that I love having them around constantly. I grew up in a household that didn't have pets, and I'm used to having control over cleanliness, furniture, and general home hygiene. Mark grew up with dogs, so he's neutral, sometimes leaning toward indulgent when it comes to his family's pets. Fast forward to the wedding planning. I made it very clear from the beginning that our venue doesn't allow pets. This isn't negotiable because it's a formal location with strict insurance policies. The only exception would be service animals, and even then, they need prior approval. I made this clear to both families months ago. Everyone seemed fine with it at the time. Enter Jenna. She texted me a few weeks ago, saying that it's completely unreasonable to expect her to leave Max at home. She said that he's part of her family, that she can't be away from him for long periods, and that she deserves to have him at our wedding. I told her that the venue doesn't allow it and that it's not negotiable, and offered that she could either hire a pet sitter or bring him to her parents' house. She exploded, accusing me of being anti-dog and controlling. Things escalated when she brought it up at a family dinner. She told everyone that I'm turning my wedding into a dog-free dictatorship. My parents and Mark's parents mostly stayed neutral, but some of Mark's extended family started chiming in, saying I should just make an exception because it's her dog. They even suggested we could rent a separate space for her dog or have someone watch him off-site, but Jenna insisted that wasn't enough. Mark tried to mediate. He suggested we allow Max for part of the reception, maybe just for photos or for the first half of the night. I agreed that this could be a compromise if the venue approved it, but they outright refused, citing liability and insurance concerns. Jenna then accused Mark of not supporting her and of being on my side, which caused him to feel guilty and frustrated because he truly wanted to support both of us. The situation really came to a head last weekend. We hosted a pre-wedding brunch with close family to go over the schedule, seating arrangements, and some last-minute details. Jenna showed up with Max in a big bag, claiming she had made arrangements for him to be there. I told her calmly but firmly that he couldn't come in, and she started crying in front of everyone, saying I was ruining her life and being selfish. She refused to leave him outside or with anyone else. Some family members tried to argue with me, saying I should just allow it for one day. I refused, and I think this is where things really divided people. My mom told me she understood my reasoning, but that I should consider the optics of it. Mark's dad sided with me initially, but later told Mark that he should make Jenna happy because family drama at weddings is bad. Mark is stressed and conflicted because he doesn't want his family to hate me, but he also knows I have a right to enforce the rules of the venue. Since then, Jenna has been cold and distant. She has refused to RSVP and has sent long texts accusing me of being a monster and someone who hates animals. Some of Mark's extended family have quietly sided with her, suggesting I'm too rigid and need to lighten up for the sake of family peace. I know that allowing Max would have caused real logistical problems. She insists on him being indoors, she wants him in photos, and she demands someone follow him around to prevent him from getting anxious, which is literally impossible to manage at a venue that already has 120 guests and a strict no-pets policy. Mark has been trying to stay neutral, but told me he thinks I might be seen as the villain by the broader family. I feel like this is ridiculous. It's my wedding, my rules, and the venue has a strict policy. Allowing one guest to break it could lead to chaos. Plus, it would set a precedent for future events. I genuinely don't want to ruin my relationship with Mark's family, but I also don't want to compromise on something I think is reasonable. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law bring her dog to my wedding despite everyone else telling me I'm being unreasonable. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after she kicked out our brother's kids. I'm 32F, and this situation has been brewing for a while. To give some context, I have a younger brother, 25M, who has 3 kids, ages 8, 6, and 4. Their mother passed away unexpectedly a couple of years ago, and since then, my brother has been doing his best to raise them while juggling a demanding job. I've always been close to them, almost like a second mom, and I've helped with babysitting, school events, and even financially when my brother needed it. My older sister, 35F, is complicated. She got engaged last year to a man, let's call him Tom, who I honestly don't get along with. He's charming on the surface, but he's manipulative, lazy, and has a history of mistreating women, for what I've heard from multiple sources. My sister, blinded by love, refuses to acknowledge any of this, which is fine for her personal life, but it's caused tension in our family. So, last week, my sister came to me in tears saying that she and Tom had a little incident with my brother's kids. Apparently, she had agreed to watch them for a day because my brother had an urgent work commitment. According to her, she lost her patience after the youngest spilled juice on her new rug, and she told my brother that she couldn't handle the kids anymore. Then, in front of them, she said they couldn't come back to her house and that she wouldn't babysit ever again. I was shocked. These are her niece and nephews, children she's known since birth, and she basically turned them away for what sounds like a completely trivial reason. I was angry, but I didn't want to start a family feud. I told my sister that I could take the kids for a couple of days while things calmed down. My brother was grateful, and the kids seemed relieved to be somewhere familiar. The real problem started yesterday. My sister called me, sobbing again, saying that Tom wanted to come stay at my house for a couple of days because he couldn't be at his apartment due to some plumbing issues. She said it was a temporary arrangement and that he just needs a place to sleep and shower. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that. She insisted, claiming it was unfair for me to deny him because I had let the kids stay with me. Here's the thing. I have a small, 3-bedroom house. I live alone, and I work long hours. I can handle my brother's kids for a weekend, but adding Tom into the mix feels intrusive, especially considering he has a history of being controlling and disrespectful. My sister tried to guilt-trip me, saying I'm always siding against her, and that she thought I was family enough to help. I explained that my concern isn't just about space. It's about safety and boundaries. She didn't accept that and threatened that I'd be breaking family bonds if I refused. I ended up saying no, politely but firmly. My sister got upset and called my brother to complain, framing it as me punishing her and her fiancé for something that was not my fault. Now, several family members have taken sides. My parents think I'm overreacting and should just let Tom stay. My brother supports me, saying he wouldn't feel comfortable with Tom around his kids, which makes sense because Tom was there during the incident where my sister kicked them out. Some of my friends think I'm overreacting, saying I should just help my sister and her fiancé. Others say I'm justified, given that Tom has a history of being manipulative and my house isn't just empty space. It's a safe environment for kids. Here's the part I'm unsure about. I do feel some guilt. My sister is my older sibling, and I want to support her. But I also know that I can't let someone into my home who I don't trust, and who could make the kids or me uncomfortable. I tried to offer alternatives, like helping her find a cheap Airbnb or letting her stay somewhere temporarily, but she refuses. She insists that it's my family duty to accommodate them. I haven't spoken to her since yesterday, but my parents are calling me multiple times, trying to convince me to change my mind. My brother's kids are still with me for the weekend, and honestly, I don't want to have to explain to them why they're suddenly exposed to someone I don't trust. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after she basically kicked my brother's kids out. I understand family obligations, but at the same time, I feel like boundaries and safety should come first. I just don't want this to escalate into a bigger family conflict. I've spent the last 48 hours replaying every possible angle, and I still feel like I made the right choice, but the guilt is gnawing at me. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding because of my financial situation. I, 32M, have always been close with my family, especially my younger sister, Emma, 28F. We grew up together in a small town, and despite our differences, we've always been supportive of each other. However, a recent situation with her wedding has caused a massive rift, and I'm questioning if I'm in the wrong here. Emma got engaged about a year ago to her now fiancé, Dan, 30M. She's been planning the wedding for months, and a lot of her excitement has revolved around the destination aspect. She wants it to be in Santorini, Greece. At first, I was thrilled for her and supportive. I told her I would do everything I could to be there. Here's where things get complicated. My financial situation isn't great. I'm currently renting a small apartment in the city where I work, and I barely make ends meet. Between rent, bills, and student loans, there's very little room for discretionary spending. I don't have savings for luxuries like vacations, and flights to Greece are expensive. Accommodation and food costs, they're also astronomical from my perspective. When Emma first announced the location, I tried to be upbeat about it, but I also mentioned that the cost could be prohibitive for me. She brushed it off and said, "Oh, come on, we'll figure it out. Maybe you can stay with the bridal party, and you don't have to spend much on meals. You have to be there. It's my big day." I explained that even with minimal spending, airfare alone was a huge expense, and I wasn't confident I could swing it without going into debt. She seemed frustrated, but didn't push further at that time. Fast forward a few months, and the wedding planning became more intense. Invitations were sent, and the bridesmaids and groomsmen were all required to buy expensive outfits that matched the destination theme. Emma wanted to rent villas or stay at luxury hotels. She insisted that I should consider taking a personal loan if necessary, because family comes first. I was stunned. I told her that I wasn't comfortable taking on debt just to attend a wedding, and that it would be financially irresponsible. I also offered to help in other ways. I could assist with planning logistics remotely, make DIY decorations, or even help with setting up the day before she wanted. But she dismissed all of these suggestions. According to her, my presence at the actual ceremony was the only thing that mattered. As the wedding date drew closer, I realized that attending would likely cost me over $3,000, not including lost wages for time off work. After a long discussion with my partner, Sarah, 29F, we decided that it wasn't feasible for us to go. I emailed Emma and explained my situation carefully, emphasizing that I loved her and wanted to support her, but that I couldn't attend the wedding in Greece due to financial constraints. The response I received from Emma was cold. She called me later that evening and said I was being selfish and that my absence would ruin the family dynamic because everyone would be there except me. She said that I didn't care about her happiness and that I was making a choice that only benefited me. I tried to explain again, but she was inconsolable. She even mentioned that my parents were disappointed in me, though they haven't said anything directly to me yet. When I brought it up with my parents, they told me they understood my situation, but also said they hoped I could figure something out because it was Emma's big day. This made me feel stuck because I don't want to disappoint my family, but I also can't put myself in serious financial jeopardy for a single event. Since then, my relationship with Emma has been tense. She hasn't spoken to me much except for short, angry texts. My parents occasionally bring up the wedding and subtly guilt me, which I hate. Sarah says I'm doing the right thing by not attending, but I feel torn. I've considered flying there at the last minute or partially paying for my trip, but even that would require me to cut into savings for months and go without essentials, which seems reckless. Some friends say I'm justified in prioritizing my financial health, while others suggest that family obligations sometimes require sacrifice. I don't want to come across as uncaring or selfish, but at the same time, I feel that risking my stability for a week-long trip is extreme. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding because of my financial situation? Could I be doing more, or am I right to set this boundary? Character count, 6,327 if you want. I can write an even longer version that hits closer to 7,000 characters, with more drama between family members and extra tension around the wedding prep and fallout. That tends to make it feel extra popular in Reddit AITA style. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to pay my brother back for a loan he gave me and causing a huge family feud? So, this is a long one, but I'll try to break it down clearly. I, 28F, have a younger brother, Jake, 24M. We've always had a complicated relationship. He's the type of person who tends to exaggerate his generosity, while I've always been more independent. About a year ago, I hit a really rough patch financially. I had lost my job unexpectedly and had a few unexpected medical bills come up, so I found myself in a position where I didn't have enough money to cover rent and utilities. I considered all options, including taking out a small loan from credit union, but the paperwork and timeline would have been stressful, so I reluctantly asked my brother if he could lend me some money. Jake immediately jumped at the opportunity. He insisted it was no problem at all and that I didn't need to worry about paying him back quickly. He gave me $5,000 in cash, which was more than enough to cover everything and gave me some breathing room. At the time, I felt relieved and grateful. I assured him I'd pay him back as soon as I could, but I also explained that my plan was to get a more stable income first and then settle the debt. Jake nodded, and we didn't put anything in writing. Our relationship has always been informal like that. Fast forward 6 months. I'd found a new job, started stabilizing my finances, and was finally able to pay off most of my credit card debt and save a little. I had about $3,000 saved up and decided to pay Jake back a portion. I asked him to meet me at a cafe so I could give him the money. When I handed it to him, he looked uncomfortable and then dropped a bomb. He started saying things like, "You don't get it. This was a gift. I don't want you to pay me back. I just wanted to help you." I was confused because, obviously, he had loaned me the money, not gifted it. I asked him if he was serious, and he said yes, that he didn't want me to owe him anything. I told him I appreciated that, but I had already planned to repay him. I explained that it wasn't about the money, it was about principle and my own responsibility. I felt weird accepting such a large amount as a gift, especially since we had a history of sibling rivalry and I didn't want there to be any strings attached. I also said I didn't want him to feel pressured or uncomfortable if I didn't pay him back, and I was willing to take care of it properly. He got really defensive. He said I was being ridiculous and that I was making him feel guilty for helping me. I tried to back off and said fine. If he truly didn't want it, I wouldn't force it. I thought that would end the conversation, but it didn't. Over the next few weeks, Jake started bringing it up constantly. He would text me things like, "I just want you to accept my gift," or "Stop stressing about the money. It's done." At first, I ignored it, but it started affecting our interactions, especially during family gatherings. Then things escalated. Jake told my parents about my insistence on paying him back. My parents immediately sided with him. They started saying things like, "You should be grateful," and "He's being so generous. Why can't you just accept it?" They even suggested I was being stubborn or difficult. My other brother, Mike, chimed in on social media, posting things that implied I was ungrateful and prideful. Suddenly, what was a private disagreement became a full-blown family issue. I explained multiple times to everyone that my problem wasn't with the money itself. It was about respect, fairness, and the principle of fulfilling obligations. I offered a compromise. I would give Jake the money, but only if he wanted it returned as a clear repayment, not a gift that made him uncomfortable. I even suggested writing something down so there wouldn't be any confusion, but he refused and insisted it was a gift. My parents doubled down, saying I was making the situation awkward and that I needed to let it go. The tension reached a boiling point during my sister-in-law's baby shower. Jake tried to hand me a small envelope with "For You" written on it, which I interpreted as another passive-aggressive attempt to force me to accept the money. I politely declined, saying I was uncomfortable taking money under these circumstances. He became visibly angry and started shouting at me in front of everyone, accusing me of disrespecting him and making him look bad. My parents joined in, saying I was causing unnecessary drama. Other family members were shocked, and a few quietly sided with me, but nobody spoke up openly. I ended up leaving the event early because the tension was unbearable. Afterward, I sent a message to Jake explaining again that I valued his help, but that I could not accept the money as a gift because it made me feel like I was in someone else's debt emotionally. He responded by cutting off most communication and blocked me on some platforms. My parents have since limited their interaction with me as well. Friends outside the family have told me I'm being principled and that my stance is understandable, but part of me wonders if I'm overreacting and making a bigger deal than it should be. On one hand, I think repaying a loan is basic responsibility, and, on the other hand, I can see why Jake might feel like I'm rejecting his generosity. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to accept my brother's loan as a gift and insisting on paying him back, even though it has caused a huge family rift? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.